Hey everyone, and welcome to another Kanoa Reviews, where we review games both new and old on all platforms. If you like the content that I make, then please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you'll never miss a review when it comes out. Today we take a look at the recently released game Warhammer 40K Darktide. This game was made by Fatshark, who were also responsible for the both critically acclaimed and financially successful Vermintide series. Vermintide basically was another take on the popular Left 4 Dead genre, which basically comes down to a co-op horde shooter where you mow down hundreds of enemies in each level while trying to get from point A to B. The big twist with Vermintide was that it was set in the medieval Warhammer setting and had a much larger focus on melee combat and also magic. But I have to admit that I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to medieval Warhammer. But I do find the Warhammer 40K universe very awesome and interesting. In my opinion, there cannot be enough Warhammer 40K games out there, but unfortunately, we have not been spoiled with loads of good games over the past decades. Most games with the 40K brand focus on grand strategy or other subgenres within the strategy branch. It's very rare to have something like an action game or shooter, and the ones we did get were usually pretty mediocre. Exceptions were games like Space Marine, which in my opinion might still be the best Warhammer 40K game out there, though I also really love the game Gladius very much. But therefore, it came to many of us to a great surprise when we found out that Darktide was being made and would feel like a proper polished Warhammer 40K experience with beautiful graphics and satisfying action within this setting. But have the creators succeeded? Let's find out. Darktide starts you up with a small tutorial level in the same way that Vermintide did. This tutorial level is single player only and teaches you the ropes of what is expected of you. I have to admit that this opening was pretty awesome since it involves an escape from a prison that is under attack by the forces of chaos. In the background, soldiers are fighting it out and the overall scope feels quite epic. You play as an exiled prisoner who, for whatever reason, has committed an act of treason, but by a miracle, you get a chance to redeem yourself and do the Emperor's bidding once more. Let me just start off that I think this is quite a mistake to have you marked as a prisoner instead of a regular soldier. I personally love the Imperial Guard within the Warhammer 40K lore, and thus it should come as no surprise that I play as the veteran in Darktide. But I would have loved to just be a grunt or a regular soldier trying to do my part within this larger conflict instead of having the shallow background story of being a traitor labeled upon me. And speaking of story, let's get out of the way first. It sucks. The cutscenes themselves look nice, since the game's engine also is very beautiful, and the character models look great and the environments are detailed and epic. But this all gets lost in the context of the cutscenes themselves. You are tasked with going on missions to level up your trust system, which is this game's version of a ranking system. Every few ranks you will unlock a new cutscene explaining more of the story. But almost every, and I actually mean almost every cutscene, plays out the same way. Since you are an ex-convict, many people around the ship you are on do not trust you, and thus, each cutscene comes down to you meeting someone new, and them saying that they don't trust you, and then letting you know that you need to do more missions in order for them to trust you. At a certain point, another plot is introduced with a traitor being in your midst that is hunted by an Inquisitor, but even this results in them saying, "We don't know if you are the traitor, so do more missions so we know we can trust you." It's really bad and lazy writing, and honestly unworthy of the Warhammer 40K lore, where the story is quite an important aspect of the overall experience. Once again, take a look at the game Space Marine, where the story is simple, but you have engaging and memorable characters and different things and twists happen throughout the campaign. So the story isn't all there with Darktide, but what about the gameplay? Well, since Darktide uses a more futuristic setting, there's a lot more focus on firearms this time around. As a veteran, I had a good amount of different weapons at my disposal, which were all beautifully modeled and true to their counterpart in the actual lore. Las rifles, auto guns, plasma weapons, chain swords, even bolt guns. There's something to love here for every 40K fan. The shooting itself is also very satisfying. You will be faced against the hordes of chaos, which basically comes down to that you are facing against hordes of zombies. They will swarm you, and it's always satisfying to unleash a volley on an incoming horde and see their bodies explode into bits. Even some nice details that gross things like maggots also explode from the bodies make it just a tad bit nicer. The melee combat also feels good and responsive, with being able to mix between regular swings, heavy swings, and also blocking and shoving enemies to create some room. Now, the campaign of Darktide does not have a linear structure, and each time you return to the hub world, you access a console and choose a mission that is currently at that time available. New missions rotate every 10 minutes or so, similar to a game like Payday 2. There are 13 missions in total at the time of release, and they come in different types. You have the standard boss type, where you need to head to a certain area to take down a boss, and then the mission will end automatically. Then there are also investigative missions, where you need to follow a floating skull around the map and scan certain areas while fending off incoming hordes of chaos. And then other missions include data gathering, where you need to tap into various consoles and hold out while being attacked by incoming zombies. It's all very by the book and basic things we have seen in the past with these horror-type shooters. It was also kind of a letdown that no new gameplay objectives were being introduced, since I feel that this genre is kind of stagnating with its gameplay. At least in the game World War Z, it actually felt a bit epic with huge battles going on in the background, or setting up defenses and traps as you awaited the zombie horde. In that regard, Darktide is just very bland and basic, and to the point where I got kind of tired of how repetitive the game was before I had gone through all of the 13 different missions. And mind you, once you have done every single mission, you will probably be around level 11 or 12. But the entire campaign goes up to level 30, and it becomes grindier and grindier the further you level up. It will still take you 15 or so hours to level up to the max once you have seen all that the game has to offer, and the gameplay is just not fun enough to withstand that. Now, there are some missions that stick out above others. The one absolutely phenomenal mission is where you visit a giant city and can have a gander at the splendor of the architecture and impressive statues everywhere. It's truly awesome to traverse within this level, while most others are just bland metal hallways, one after the other. It's a shame they did not try to make more levels epic in a scale like this. But even with the epicness in scope, I do still wish they could have also had more epic battles going on in the background to add to that ambience. The world feels kind of dead, despite being so detailed and beautifully crafted. Throughout each mission, you will also get to face some mini-bosses, and depending on your difficulty you play on, you will be facing new regular enemies or even new bosses. The boss fights are quite fun and challenging, and require teamwork in order to defeat them and hit their weak spot. And speaking of teamwork, if you are the type that plays these games with bots, then you're kinda out of luck. The game does not have lobbies where you can play the missions with bots, but only will add a bot temporarily if a player disconnects. You can still have bots with a private match, but you need to have at least one friend to join you in order to do this. But luckily, me and my friends from Looping Real Gaming formed up a squad, and it's been pretty fun raiding with them through the levels. But it mostly just ended up in brainless chattering on Discord while mowing through hordes and hordes of zombies again and again and again. There are some decent upgrading mechanics you can do with perks, accessories, and of course new weapons to unlock and level up. But yet again, this comes down to being very grindy and not as rewarding as it could be. Every hour, a new set of weapons and accessories become available at the shop, and it honestly feels like the mechanics from a mobile game. In the end, I did have fun with Darktide, but only for maybe 3 hours or so. The repetitive nature quickly started to show, and though I can still enjoy booting the game up and shooting some zombies with friends, I am often already tired of it after 2 rounds. The game simply needs more variety in its gameplay and map design. Make it feel less grindy. Grinding can be fun in a video game, but that can only be the case when that gameplay is fun and enjoyable. When it comes to these horde-style co-op shooters, there are many alternatives that are actually better. The only reason why you would want to play this is to get that Warhammer 40K fix, but again, with the story being so lackluster, I did not feel it added anything to that enjoyment. In the end, Warhammer 40K Darktide gets a 6.9. With this, it is clear that we are still waiting for that awesome AAA 40K experience. With my love for Space Marine being so high, I hope that its sequel, Space Marine 2, can deliver what so many of us have been hoping for.